Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Scott Snyder's back. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Hey,
It's
it's
great to see
great
you
to
again,
see you,
buddy.
Sal. Thanks, man. Thanks, man. I'm still in my kid's room instead of my studio. There, we're redoing our driveway. Was like the thing in Indiana Jones where you step all the different like potholes and whatever that you're trying to step on and not get killed with a dart. So we finally, after 3 are
Yeah.
redoing our driveway, so it's like super noisy outside. So I'm hiding again in my kid's room, but I do have an office. I swear, I have a grown up job.
Yeah, I'm sure. You're just not just waiting for your kid to go off to school and being like, "This is great. Now I have a space. I've got my own room. I got sports
I know
memorabilia.
it's
It's
all
gonna be
hit Bad
cool."
News Bears. He's got his giant Aaron Judge like cut out. We're big,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
We're big Yankee fans, so he goes all out.
Yeah. So you have to be feeling good based on the reception of Batman 7, the upcoming Batman 8, which I had a chance to look at, and oh my god, such a smart move, and I'm loving what's going on with Absolute. And I don't want to take too much time. I want you to share your feelings about all of this, but this like small arc break that is
Hmm.
happening, not just with Batman, but also over Wonder Woman and with Superman. These kind of like little breaks where it gives the main artist on the book time to kind of keep working and also flesh out the world a little bit. So great, so cool. Gives us a chance to work with Marcos Martin. How fun is
Yeah.
that?
Oh my god, dude! I've been like hoping to work with him since I started in comics. So it was actually, with these breaks. Thank you for saying that too. With these breaks, like one of the goals with Absolute was to allow the creative team, but especially the artists, to have a lot of input on who the interstitial artists are. So here, these are all like Nick's choices, but luckily we have the same taste and the
Yeah.
same the same desires. But like he was like, "What about Marcos Martin?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know if we can get Marcos, but I'll try." I didn't know him. I had corresponded with him because I was really a big fan of not only his work, which obviously everybody is, but also of what he does in comics with Panel Syndicate. He has his own sort of distribution channel where you can upload your comic and sell it for anything. So essentially, the idea is people pay what they want. He did it with a comic that I loved that he did with Brian Vaughan called Private Eye, and so
Mm-hmm.
he's just been like a force for good also in comics. So I knew him a little bit through that, but when he agreed to do these 2 issues, I mean, I was over the moon. And between him and Munza, the colorist, like what they were able to do on this one, just Nick and I are just so grateful. So yeah, the idea is to have really consistent teams like Hayden and Kelly and Rafa and Jason. Like everybody's really locked in for the whole run. Like Nick and I, we just went to Italy together for Napoli for Naples Con, and I just got back, which is why I'm such a mess. But we were there and we were planning out literally through issue 30 together, and how many breaks Nick needs, like based on what his life is going to be like. Is he taking a vacation with his kids? Like, so we're really trying to be holistic and make sure that these teams can do their best work and stick around for as long as these series can go.
Yeah. I love you saying that it's like you're planning for issue 30. We're on FOC for issue 8.
I know 8 is out. 8 is out, or it comes out this coming
This
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Like
yeah.
this Wednesday, and then 9, the FOC that starts our big Bane arc, which
Mm-hmm.
is like what I'm really hoping people will order early, because this one has a huge amount of kind of surprises that I think will excite people. Not just about Bane. Bane has a lot of surprises to him, but you get to see the inside of. You finally find out kind of what Arkham is. There's the introduction of a couple characters that are going to get people really excited that I don't want to spoil, but I mean, I think people are going to get they're going to get pretty riled up. So
Yeah.
there are a couple people that I will really shock, I think, as introductions. And it's a really meaty body horror, like scary arc. If the first one was kind of over the top awesome, in terms of Batman being awesome, then this one is really where he sees what he's up against, and it's really frightening. So we wanted to make Arkham scary again, Bane, all of that kind of stuff really challenging for Bruce. And so we planned it out like we have the 2 issues with Marcos, this Mr. Freeze, and that really rolls. For people that haven't seen issue 8 yet, it hooks you into issue 9. So there's a big cliffhanger that kind of gets you right into issue 9. And then issue 9 is a 5-issue arc that really pushes Batman to the very limits and makes him feel like maybe this whole Batman thing was a mistake. Uh, and after that, we start to get into his relationship with Selina, and then we have some characters coming to Gotham, like some other villains that I'm really excited about, from Scarecrow and that, and then we have Joker. Joker is like, the end of our first big sort of season 1, even though season 1 takes about 2 years, so it'll
Yeah.
be closer to about issue 20, 24. That area is where Joker really comes in earnest. But this whole thing, we're doing it. God, I'm just like babbling about it. But we're going to do a couple special issues that set Joker up too. We're doing an Arkham issue in the fall, and then we're going to do a Joker special too, sometime
Nice.
really, really early 26, maybe even late 25, depending on how quickly it gets done. But I'm working on it with Jock. It's going to be cool.
I love how much time you're taking to give us Joker and let this universe breathe, let Batman grow, and introduce us really delicately into his supporting cast slash rogues. The other kind of version of the rogues that we've gotten in the Absolute Universe, by way of them being childhood friends of Bruce and them knowing his identity now, and this interconnected world, is so refreshing and exciting and different from what we're used to in the main universe, that allows it to be its own animal. I assume that the Joker will be no less subversive and kind of groundbreaking. Is that kind of your approach, or is that
Yeah, he's been built in from the very beginning. I mean, for
yeah,
me, I almost never write a Batman story without thinking of where the Joker would be in it, even if the Joker isn't in it.
yeah,
Um, just because he's always just the exact opposite of what Batman stands for. So in some storylines, it feels like that's not what it's about. It's not always about Batman going up against the complete antithesis of what he stands for in that moment. Sometimes there's smaller stories like, like this, like the Mr. Freeze arc or these things. But in general, like I always sort of posit Joker somewhere at the other side of the mirror from Batman. And so here, if Bruce is really about being able to make a change, he learns to be about collectivism, letting people in to help him. Then Joker is sort of the opposite, where he's like, no matter how many people you get together, nothing matters compared to the amount of power I have. And he's also very spookily Bruce Wayne-ish. He's really handsome. He's, has all the resources. He's got the Joker special is going to take place on this island that he owns, that I'm really excited, where he kind of takes some of his business rivals.
I see.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. But anyway, he sort of is this spirit, like he haunts a lot of the story, but he's kind of everything Bruce fears. Like he is sort of the entrenched, impossible thing to move that says, you can try everything you want, but from the beginning of civilization to now, it's only ever been about strong and weak, power and powerless, and that's it. And I have everything, and you have nothing, and it doesn't matter. And I'm going to show you how tiny and worthless you are, and everyone you care about is. And so he's really dark. I mean, he's like, it's the most pitch black Joker I've ever written, I would think, because he's just so zealous about his beliefs, and they extend beyond. Batman is like a representative of the things that he despises, and everything about Batman is the opposite of him. But a lot of the time when I was writing Batman the proper, Joker would kind of emerge from the shadows and be the thing. Suddenly he'll almost like create it out of what Batman was doing.
Yeah,
Whereas here, Joker pre-exists. He exists for a long time before Batman. So it's not like someone that's coming up to challenge Batman. Batman actually is in the role of Joker in this story, where Batman comes up to challenge the Joker. And a lot of some of the trimmings you'll see later on, Batman, it's mentioned really briefly in 2, but we beef it up a lot in issue 2, but we beef it up a lot more coming up in the Bane arc and beyond. Batman starts working with the Red Hood gang. You might see some of the characters that you associate with Joker, Harley and other ones, kind of congregating around Bruce a little bit more. So in that
Mm,
way, Bruce really takes on the traditional role of the Joker, the one that kind of disrupts things, and not in the same way Joker does. He's not like a all chaos and anarchy, but he really does believe that if something is super corrupt, and there's no way of changing it such as it is, that it's okay to break it and then try and make something better from it.
yeah.
If what exists doesn't really live up to its principles at all. So there is a level of like chaos and kind of anarchic spirit to him, even though I wouldn't classify him, purely
As,
as like
as a pure
would
anarchist.
Joker is like the dark version of what Batman is doing here. Batman is always an engineer. He's always trying to build, but
Right.
sometimes you have to break things to build them better. And Joker just wants to break.
I remember years ago during like the Metal Wars, you were talking about swinging for the fences and giving it your all, and how you always have these stories in your heart and you could tell them. And I remember specifically Mr. Freeze as an example for you, where you were like, I could tell a 2-part Mr. Freeze story. Immediately, I was reminded of this when this issue came out, where you were like, I could do a 2-part Mr. Freeze story that's just kind of cool and Batman fights him and stuff. But like, I really want to do this grand. But you had this kind of like universe building grand plan going on. Ironically, you're helping to build an entire other universe now. But is this part of that idea that you had initially, the old Mr. Freeze? Like, I could tell this Mr. Freeze story, but or was this just kind of like born from the trajectory that you had started from Absolute entirely?
Oh, definitely the second. And what I meant was almost like
Like, you could
doing
pick any
really,
character and
yeah, like it could have been any character, like doing really traditional small Batman stories. It's
yeah,
like, you practice something and you work on something every day for many years, and it becomes like muscle memory. And so some aspects of it are really familiar. Like if I was to go back and do the main Batman, meaning, you know, every time I like writing him where he displays a new gadget and you always show how awesome he is as a detective, and you have the villain do something that is a variation on what. So it really could do it with anybody, in terms of if someone put a gun to my head and was like, you've got to write a Batman story really quick, or if I
right.
was like, oh man, I need money, I need to phone in a few whatever. But
Mhm.
luckily I've never had to do
Well,
that or
at
done
this
that.
point, there's no point in you phoning anything in. I mean, you're given this opportunity. You take the opportunities you see, and I don't see Scott Snyder needing to ever phone in a story at this point.
No, I'm really lucky. I mean, I'm really lucky in that there's nothing in my career I've ever felt like I've had to phone in, or I've certainly
Yeah,
screwed things up. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I've always knocked it out of the park. But I mean, I have never set, my Tyler, the guy I work with, or anyone that works with me at DC will tell you, like, when I work with like a letterer, for example, I always offer at the beginning or when I talk to them to pay extra out of pocket, or warn them ahead of time that, like, I do a lot of revisions, not anything that I hope really burdens them in any ridiculous way, but I mean, like, I don't just do it and then it's done. I really look at it again, even when it's a small nothing, sort of small, seemingly inconsequential story. I don't. I think it's just a fear of it's not even the fear. It's like, when you spend a lot of time not having the job you always dreamed of, or having a job you really don't like, and
yeah,
having been in that position a few times, like before I broke in, uh, and feeling like, God, this is never gonna work. If I am I ever gonna am I ever gonna find my way to something that I'm happy to do every day, like this, like comics, like what I wanted to do. And then you get there and I have a very visceral memory of what it's like to have a job that you really dislike, and so and go to that every day and just be like, how do I get through this to get home and try and write for myself. So in that way it feels like it's almost like a reflex where it's like you can't take it for granted. You just
yeah.
can't. You've got to be like, there are 1,000 people who would kill for this job that I have, and you've got to take it seriously no matter what you're working on. So, and teaching really helps me with that. I love doing the class and seeing people that are really hungry to break in, and watching a bunch of them break in has been such an inspiration, where it's like these, because I have students that are like, really young and starting out and brand new and idealistic. And I have students that are, coming off of a long career where they're deciding to take a big leap and invest some money in making a comic. And it's what they've always wanted to do. And they're older. And all of that just makes you want to go to work and be like, I'm really lucky to get to do this. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, I've never phoned it in. And again, I've certainly screwed up. But with Mr. Freeze, it really was like, what would he be in this world? Like what would somebody who represents what Cold is and works with the Joker in some capacity to help set up Arkham, what would he be? And so I went through like all this trial and error. And one person I talked to a lot in the last year, 2 years, really started talking to is Dennis Camp. I love his aesthetic. I love what he's doing in comics. I have my group. Like I talk to Josh Williamson every day or two. I talk to Dennis. I talk to James Tynan all the time. And like there's just sounding boards, and Dennis has become a real big part of that. I gave him a special thanks in these 2 issues. He's there. So it's like, being because I was really tempted to make Mr. Freeze a kind of a variation on the classic version where Joker or Nora is being held somewhere in the world was one version, and so
Mm.
he's forced to kind of do things he doesn't want to do. And the problem was, I did a version of Mr. Freeze for the New 52 that I really liked, but was pretty polarizing. One of the ones that I did when I was really convinced, I felt guilty because when we started Batman, they told me all these books really have to be brand new continuity, and with Batman, we really pushed hard to try and keep the continuity such as it was. And I was really I did not want to change. He didn't have any Robins anymore, any of that stuff. And luckily, Grant was pretty locked into the same thing. And I was nobody in Grant. As long as Grant was like, I want to do that, then they listened. But for the New 52, there wasn't a big delineation point continuity wise between what had come before and what was coming after. But because of that, they really came hard. Dan and them came hard, being like, you didn't redo Batman's origin or any of this stuff. You got to redo the villains. Like you've got to do some stuff where it's really a big swing. And so with Mr. Freeze, I was like, you know what? All right, I'm gonna go darker with him. And James, it was the first time I got to really co-write something with James too. And Jay Fabach did the art, and we did it so it was Mr. Freeze. What you learn, the surprise of the issue, is that in this New 52 version, Mr. Freeze never knew Nora. Nora was the first person to be cryogenically frozen, and he was doing his dissertation on her and kind of fell in love with her and her love of the ice. And so he's more of he's a darker,
like a stalker. Yeah.
yeah, he's more of a creeper in his own psycho way. So, but some people really liked it, and then some people really were mad at me and James. Which I felt bad because James was a kid at the time, and I was like, "Oh, it's me. I did it," But it made me realize how important to his story Nora and the romance and sympathy is for many people, which is funny because all that shit came from the animated series. Like that's the Heart of Ice is where that story came from, which so many
Yeah.
villains. In the comics, when he started, he was a guy called like Professor Zero or Mr. Zero, and he was just
Hmm.
like a crazy. But it was until Paul Dini and Bruce Timm and them really redid him. So anyway, like with this, it was, you know what? I'm taking another swing. I'm getting away from that romance. I can't. I love Nora and the whole thing, but we've seen Nora be Mr. Freeze. We've seen her
That's
woken
true.
up. We've seen her woken up and hate him. We've seen her team up with him. Like, there's not a lot of variations left there. And
Yeah.
so I was like, what if it's just their kid? And then I was like, what if it's their kid? And instead of it being, Victor Senior, it's Victor Junior, and he really disavows everything they believe about the ice. Because with Absolute Batman, I'm trying really hard to like tap into things that make me really upset and angry, for my kids, and for the world that they're looking at. And one thing I really dislike is the way that it feels like instead of helping, a lot of really rich and powerful people are constantly looking for an escape hatch or looking for a way to sort of preserve their own life, escape from death, escape from the planet, escape from the event. I read this book. It was called The Billionaire Survival Guide, and it was interesting. It was this guy. It was nonfiction, and it's this guy who gets interviewed. He goes to this place to do a consulting gig with all these billionaires, and it turns out that the consulting is all about what's the best survive. What is there a way to, like, all these things? How do you get your bodyguards after a collapse to still be loyal to you, and like all
Yeah.
these sort of things. And so with this, I was like, cryogenics, I looked up the history of cryogenics, and it's largely, a scam, but it's
Yeah.
also fascinating as this dream that people have, especially super wealthy people, of being frozen and woken up when everything is fixed. Death is fixed. The world is, paradisical and utopian and whatever. And it's, yeah, on the one hand, it's kind of this like beautiful fantasy. On the others, it's like really abhorrent, because you're like, you're taking no responsibility for fucking things up at all or any of this stuff, and you just want to be woken up when everything is solved, and you're devoting all this money to getting that sort of like sleeping beauty fantasy, instead of being like, I'm actually going to live on through my contributions and the impact I have on the world. And so I was like, what if this kid sees his parents' view of the ice that way? Like, his parents believe the ice holds wonders. The ice is this pristine thing that holds the goodness of the earth, like holds cures for things in it, and holds like, people can go in the ice and they'll be woken up. And as a kid, like, spoiler if you haven't read Seven, but I love this version, so I'm just gonna go out there
Yeah.
and spoil it. But as a kid, he has a terminal illness like Nora has in the main continuity, and so his parents put him in the ice until there's a cure for it. And in doing so, they think the ice is wonderful, but he feels every second of that pain. He's in the
Yeah.
ice and it twists and hurts for years. He's in there, and he winds up loving it. It transforms him into being like, he thinks of the ice as reckoning, that it holds all the shit we don't want to remember exists, all the diseases and the bacteria and the fossils of animals that have become extinct because death is, inescapable. That all of it is like the memory, the ugly memory that, you're trying to get away from. And that really inspired me, where I was like, then he's a monster, and then he'd be scary, or he'd have these like frostbitten hands and face where his mouth gets black. And I was like, oh, this is it, I got it. And I was talking to Marcos loved it too, and was like, all right, he'll crawl on the ceiling, and he'll like, and then he has all the people that are frozen, that have come to the company to be frozen, to be woken up one day, that he can wake up, that are all these kind of ghoulish frozen people. And and he's got all these diseases and stuff in the ice. The ice is almost like his cabinet of horrors that he can throw at you. And I was like, this is it, because Mr. Freeze has this sci-fi kind of regalness, like he's almost like magisterial. And I was like, this guy's like dirty and creepy and violent and mean, and just like this new generation of Mr. Freeze. And he keeps his parents, like Victor and Nora, frozen above his desk, where they're like, and he knows they're in pain.
Yeah.
He's so mean. I'm like, you thought that the other version was psycho nasty, like from New 52. This version, way outdoes that one. So
Yeah. I love the amount of research and thought that went into just the idea. The second when we were talking, I remember in issue 7, there's this talking about the ice and like how they were like, oh, there's cures and stuff. Like I was like, was reminded of a news story I saw maybe within the year, but it might have been years before, where it was like, oh, there's all kinds of like bacterium in there that we've never developed immunities for,
yeah,
because it predates like human civilization. Don't do that. It's like
yeah. Well,
there's mysteries in the ice that we shouldn't unlock, and it's like Mr. Freeze is emblematic of that, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. What a
yeah,
cool.
exactly. It's like where the ice is melting and there are genuinely bacterium in there, and there could be viral agents that predate our, existence entirely. We have no idea what they could do. I mean, it's like a
Yeah,
treasure trove of horrors for,
right.
for every kind of screenwriter or whoever out there. I'm surprised we haven't seen something about it yet. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to make him, and he has a big role. I also really love like the theme of the whole story, right? So this story, for anyone that hasn't read it, it's about Bruce Wayne trying to figure out what's happening in Arkham. But because he's not billionaire Bruce Wayne, he can't just like walk in.
Right.
So he's trying to get on a work crew to get into this site to figure out what's happening in this black site prison. And he goes to one of his old friends, Matches Malone, who like grew up in the same neighborhood with all his friends, and is known as this crazy kid who, oh, they always played this game, Matches game, where they flicked a match at a matchbook, and whoever hit the matchbook, lit it on fire, could pick which kid had to do the bad dare, like get the porno mags, get the alcohol, get whatever. And Match has always picked himself. So it
You're
was
right.
like this, why the hell did he do that? Oh, because he's nuts, whatever. But the
Hmm.
story really unpacks this idea of why he was so self-destructive. And ultimately, Bruce's friends are challenging him at Match's memorial to be like, you're doing Batman as a suicide mission. That's all it is. Like, you went on that boat last arc to die. And Alfred saved him, but he was prepared to go down clearly. And the same thing here. They're like, you're going after this freeze dude by yourself with no help. Like, you're just looking to go down, and that's a shame. That's you can't go out like Matches. Your father deserved better, and that really infuriates Bruce, where he's just like, has it out with his friends. But ultimately, what Mr. Freeze stands for is that same thing. Mr. Freeze has no sympathy for. He believes that the world is dying. The world has a death coming, and he can't wait for it. And so he is almost like a necrotic, rotting thing that believes that that has to come now. And so he's almost like a reflection of what Bruce's emotions are right now, where Bruce is kind of like, I did what I needed to do, and now I want to go down in flames like the matchbook. I want to burn out. I want to just, and it takes his friends being like, your dad wouldn't have liked that. You also, like, you owe it to all of us and your mother to like live with the consequences of your actions here. Like, yeah, it's tough, man. You're Batman. Now we all know you're Batman.
Yeah.
Now they're gonna come after your family. But you did that, and like, deal with it, man. That's what your father would have done. He didn't want to be outside that door getting shot. He would have come in, but it was the only way to do it.
Yeah.
So honor that, and it really hit me. I really love writing it. I thought it was one of the most, for me, difficult and moving sequences I've written in a Batman book. So
Well, and what a fun challenge it is to make a Batman. Because, I mean, we've had in the main universe, everyone calls Batman a loner, but he has like 17 Robins and all these other Bat ancillary characters and Batman Incorporated. Like, there's universal European Batmans. Uh, this is an intimate Batman who has always had a support group, always had a support network. People who, Batman didn't have to learn how to have friends like the
yeah,
main Batman did. This Batman has never been alone. And
exactly.
what a fun challenge that must be to get into Bruce's head, a head that you've been in for a long time,
Yeah,
and completely dissuade yourself of like the psyche of that guy and go, this is a guy who's like, I hesitate to say more well adjusted because this Batman has a little bit of a death wish, but also maybe he doesn't, because there's that moment, and I don't want to spoil anything, but like in issue 8, let's just say doesn't he doesn't seem to want to die.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And
there's
dude, that's exactly right. And it is really fascinating because he's a very different Bruce than the other Bruce. I mean, to me, they're like these strange funhouse mirror versions of each other, where ultimately only one person on Earth can be the main universe Batman. And that's part of the power fantasy and the fun of Batman in that world is you have to be a billionaire and train around the world, and you have to be the best at everything, and it requires everything only Bruce Wayne billionaire has, like butler, cave, everything. This Batman doesn't have any of that stuff, and it really is more of a everybody can be Batman. And that Batman, I think, in terms of friends, again, he's in a position that's so lonely, and the more people he lets in, the more culpable he is because he's in this kind of position of power, and anyone he like lets into his mission, he kind of needs them, but he kind of doesn't need them because he's got so many resources.
yeah.
But the lesson of this Batman, not to spoil anything, but like the secret of the whole first year plus the first 2 years, like I was saying, the first 24 issues, 25 issues, is like he realizes the only way for someone in his position to be Batman effectively against villains that are the ones with more resources than the traditional Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Like, how would you go up against Elon Musk, or how would you go up against Jeff Bezos, or, and I'm not positing that they're the Joker. I just mean in our world right now, let's say you have a big problem with that. How as one person do you do that when they have whole economies into themselves? Well,
Yeah.
you have to inspire a lot of people and let those people in. And so the whole sort of trajectory of Bruce's emotional arc is allowing his friends in, then allowing people outside that group in, like Barbara Gordon. And because this is in issue 9, you start to see him, the issue that, yeah, again, final order this Monday, next Monday. is you start to see him working with Barbara Gordon as his Jim Gordon, you know, in that way. And he starts to let in more people without spoiling too much that you'll
Hmm.
be excited to see enter the picture. I think a lot of Bat fans, but that idea of like, you know, allowing more and more people in is really the only way. You've got to inspire a movement. You know, you've got to be able to have everybody be Batman in that way. So that's like where it's headed, and the friends are the key heart. Like this issue, even 8, is where they're kind of arguing that point. It's almost like you can't just like tell us you're Batman and then duck, dude.
Right.
You've got to deal with it. Like we are all Batman. And they say to him in issue 7, they're like, wait, so that's why you trained with me, says Waylon. Like, that's why you trained to fight with me. And Harvey's like, that's why you know, you went to City Hall and clerked with me, like to learn all of the, you know, the corruption in different boroughs. And Oswald is like, that's why you slummed it with me to learn the underworld. And, you know, Riddler is like, so I guess we're all a part of Batman then for real, aren't
Yeah.
we? So that's the lesson, is that in this world, Batman works when you let more and more people in. In the other world, you know, I love that his relationships and I love writing them, but it's always queasy too. You know, I have trouble with it sometimes because, you know, he's so a man on a mission unto himself that when you let people in who have less than you and all that stuff too, it can just become queasy. That's
Yeah.
all at times, where it's like, you know, how do I protect this person? How do I, especially they're younger, all that. So there's just a freedom with this version that's just like, so there's there's nothing that I have to kind of wrangle with in my head about why would he do that. It's a little bit of a contortion to be like, why would he let his 10-year-old son like fight next to him and get
Right.
punched in the face? I mean, 10 is really young, you know. So it's just like all of that stuff that I love reading, and I love Damien, I love Dick and Duke, like everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoy all that stuff, but there it is. It can be hard to write sometimes because in the real world, there's also a kind of, yeah, there's like a slight queasiness to that occasionally. And in this world, it's like it's really simple. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
his friends are his age. He lets them in. He doesn't have a Robin. He's just out to go, and you know he's ready to kick ass.
Yeah. I I'm especially, I know you're teasing the introduction of more fun characters within the Batman world. I am fascinated by and excited to see more of his relationship with his mom
Yeah.
and Jim being new dad, possibly.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
the relationship with Martha and Jim, even though we don't see much of it, but the stuff we do get, it's good stuff. Like it's real.
you see a lot more. So this arc starting in 9, you know, we do sort of the smaller, quieter arcs in between, and then when Nick comes on, we just sort of try and like ramp it all the way up. And with this
Yeah.
arc, everything ramps up, including like Jim and Martha's. Basically, there's the scene with them where she's like, "All right, Jim, so you got knocked down. She lost the mayorship. Mayor Hattie is Hill, sorry, is in office. Who's like a, you know, totally corrupt guy."
Yep.
And she's like, "You got to get back up." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. Like I've gotten to. I'm tired, Mar. Like I've done all this. Like it's my turn to support you. What do you want to do? Like what do you supported me? Like what is it that you think would help this city?" And so she's like, you know, "I have an idea, but it would take some money." And he's like, "I'm broke. Dude. You're broke. I'm broke." And she's like, "No, I know someone who has money." And so you'll see, it's like she starts her. I love their relationship. Is like one of my favorite parts. The friends with Bruce and that relationship are like my two favorite things to write. So
Yeah.
a long line ahead of them. And yeah, she's this arc is painful for her because Bruce, when he goes into Arkham, really bad things happen to him, and he's there for quite a while too. Like, and it really hurts her. Like,
Sure.
she's putting missing signs all over the place about him, and spoiling a little bit, but like, um, you know, this we really want this arc to be one where it's like last arc. It was fun being Batman, right? Mostly. Well,
Yeah.
this arc, you're gonna see why it's not fun. You know, when the claws come out from the world, when you punch the world and the world punches back
Mhm.
in this universe, like it's going to knock you down real hard, you know? And so that's this arc. And it has a lot of emotion. I mean, this arc really, it's really the reckoning with his friends too, where this is the one where it's either they're going to be as villains or they're going to stay as friends. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm
That's
really, really
exciting.
excited for people to see how it plays out.
I'm loving it, man. You must be the cat that caught the canary as far as how the reception for Absolute has been and how excited people are, not just for what's coming, but just for what has already been and how it continues to reinvent and innovate and excite. Um, Congratulations on
Thanks, brother.
getting
Well,
a incredible cadre of talent together and spearheading this whole thing and giving people something that I think you tapped into. You were like, I think people are ready for this. I think people want this, and yeah, you were right. People were
I was
definitely
yeah, I was
hungry for
super
this.
scared. I mean,
Yeah,
like, for anyone watching that doesn't, inside baseball, like, I told Sal the idea long before, when it was just I was about to put it up for approval at DC. It was like a few San Diegos ago. I
yeah,
remember telling you and being like, "What do you think?" Because I felt like I really was ready. Like, I really wanted this, and I know my friends did, but you're really scared. Like, I didn't want to be the guy that drives DC into a fucking iceberg, and
right.
be like, what if you do all this stuff and nobody wants it and nobody buys it? And then you're literally responsible for people getting fired. So there was a lot of fear, but the biggest thing was we went to retailers. I really try and talk to them regularly, the guys I trust, like Steve at Third Eye and Gall and Mario at Midtown and my guys at Fourth World, and just like 5 or 6 retailers. Really talk to them, the bigger retailers, a couple smaller ones, and just be like, is this something that you think your fans would want the way I want it? And they were really aggressive. They were like, people are more than ready for this kind of thing, and if you do it and really push it, I'll bet you, go as big as you can with the whole all in initiative. And it really was them, like, getting them on the phone with DC. When I flew out there, we had a conference call, me, Josh, and all these retailers in DC, and it was like, they were like, look, the sales haven't been the best across the board, not just for us, but there was a bit of a lull in sales pre Ultimate Universe, pre GI Joe, pre this is that year, like 22 into 23.
Yeah,
um, and retailers really believed it. The fan base was there. It wasn't like they were leaving. It was just they were waiting for a company to all the companies to kind of be like, look, we're going to take some big swings, as in a not just one book. Like, we're going to do a bunch of books that's really going to, like, the Energon universe, the Absolute universe, the Ultimate universe, Turtles universe being expanded, all that stuff. And so they were right, man. It's been amazing to see. And I think it just makes all of us want to do it more. And so right now, like, I just signed, Josh too, but I just signed a contract with DC to consult for another, like, year and a half, 2 years, essentially, to sort of bring us all the way through the Dark Side All In saga.
hmm,
So I don't even know if I'm totally probably going to get in trouble for saying, but um, so our plan really is, we want to keep the Absolute universe sort of what it is generally, because we don't want to get it too big. We want it to always be something that you can
jump into.
read in its
Yeah.
entirety. But as some of the books are planned as miniseries, like Martian Manhunter, for example, was planned as 6 or 12. Like, as those books wind down, we have 2 more books that we're going to launch there, in the beginning of 26. I'm really excited about. One spins out of Batman, and one is its own thing. And then we have Matt's amazing Batman, Matt Fraction's Batman, coming in the fall, and a little bit of a refresh in the Bat universe that way. And then really in the fall as well, we'll be doing a big kind of second part of the All In story that I'll be writing with Josh, and it'll be a kind of an event we're going to announce soon. And then that will take us to the middle of that big story and set up kind of the finale for the end of 26, early 27. So that'll be like, it's like one big blueprint. And what it allows us to do, having a plan that way, is to be able to do this kind of thing where it's like on the other side of this midpoint, like at the beginning of 27, we do have plans to freshen up the main line, bring in some new titles, really try and always keep things exciting, and always keep things like, if something isn't working, it's okay to phase it out and rest it, try something new. If something, if you have creators you want to give a chance, do it. But the real ethos, I think, of this moment is like creator forward.
Yeah.
Editors and bosses at DC, and I can see it at other companies as well, have been really great about being like, you know what, the more you give creators a little bit of room with the prompt of the series, the better the stuff turns out. So that's the way it's been on Absolute, and I see it over at Ultimate and Energon. I know from Josh, and the way we're going to proceed in 26 is to do more of that, but in the main line. So if the Absolute was the star of like 24 into 25, then 25 into 26, we're really trying to make the main line the star, while still, still sprucing up Absolute here and there. But we want to really inject that same excitement of Absolute into the main line come end of 25, early 26, because 25 we're all locked in. And like,
Yeah.
just to, again, I don't know if this is like illegal to say, but thank you to the fans in the way that DC, we already, I know for like, we already surpassed what we expected to make essentially in 25 now. So,
Wow.
that allows us, the exciting thing about that, it's not like, hey, now it's not like I get more money or anyone gets more money. Like, we're not all like, but what it does is it allows for us to experiment more, to take more risks, to put more money behind the promotional aspects that we put in stores. So we can give, like, if we do another event in the fall, hypothetically, then what we can do is like send retailers cool things like the Justice League cards, but bigger than that this time. We can do more promotional signings where we send the teams to different places. So the better it does, the more we can reinvest in the line and just be like, this is what we're about. It's just making DC the best it's been in a long, long time.
Yeah.
So that's my whole job with Josh is, because and I'm trying really hard not to make it the us show, the me and Josh show, but I think, and be more of a utility player. Just wherever we need a book, I'll do that book. So if it's like you need a big book, I'll do that book. If you need a small book, or we don't have a horror book, I'll do that.
Right.
Try and do that. But like, it really is because, like, again, not throwing anyone under a bus, but like, these companies can be really tough sometimes to work at. Not like tough, like compared to other jobs. I don't mean
Sure.
that. Like, my wife is a doctor. Like, that's a tough. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, I had a
Yeah.
stressful day. Millions of fictional lives hang in the balance. As opposed to. But they can be tough in the way that, like, especially in this moment of the last 10 years of tremendous upheaval, right? Where both companies, Marvel and DC, are bought by parent companies. Both companies have a new influx of money and excitement, but also oversight.
Yeah.
DC has moved to LA. There's integration with, and then you have multiple bosses coming in and out. You've got Diane Nelson, and then you have Pam Gifford, Lifford, and then it's just like there's a lot of that. And again, none of that is like shitting on any of those people. It's more just that there's a lot of change, and it's very
Yes.
hard to plan, and it's very hard to, because it takes a while. Like I told you, like a good plan, in my opinion, like All In and Absolute was planned 2 years before we did it, because you've got to give at least a year. Like right now, I'm pitching DC. We're flying out there again, spoiler, but we're flying out there at the end of this month, me and Josh, to talk to them about spring of 26. And spring of 26 is where we have an opportunity to really inject the main line with some new books and all this kind of stuff. That's already to us like close. Like that's we're doing that now. Like when you
Yeah.
have the plan set and you actually have room, you can give creators time to think and to pitch and to think about, is this book working for me? Is there a book I'd rather be on? Or no, I really want to recommit to this book, but I'm going to take it in a new direction, and have more of a holistic approach, as opposed to like the way it could be before, where it was like, you know, boss company needs, we're doing a movie and we need a lot of books about this thing now. Or, hey, I know you had this plan to do this, but because we now are no longer under the umbrella of that company, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do this. And that was always just like, there's a lot of whiplash and
Yeah.
chaos. So to be able to try to be a small part of a stabilizing force there now, and be able to be like, look, I approach creators and say, you have our word that like we are not going to change course within the next couple of years. This is what we're doing. So you have room to breathe, and like, I'm not bullshitting you. Like, I'm a creator too. Josh is a creator too. Dennis, like, we're all talking to each other. Like, this is a place where we can go and have fun right now. It's a good window. Like, who knows? Like, we could all be bought by whatever tomorrow, and by McDonald's, and turned into a like happy meal. I have no idea, but for right now, things aren't going to change for a bit, and it feels like a great creator forward kind of moment there, and I'm very excited for what we have planned.
Yeah, that was something that you that was on your masthead, like when things were theoretical, was creator forward. That was always, and I mean, it's such a truism, and it always has been, where it's you give your creators the leeway, the room, and the power, and they're going to give you something special because they're not going to want to blow it. And
Yeah,
it's emblematic of like the whole success of the line. I think also over on the other side at Ultimate, like they're
me too.
making books they want to make, and people are responding. And it's like that's why there's so much enthusiasm and such a tidal wave of audience excitement, is because creators are telling their stories the way they want to.
That's the way it feels, and it feels like comics kind of had a moment where it was almost like, let's prove them wrong about this whole, like when I was talking to you last time about this whole conversation that happens in the mainstream media about superheroes being dead, Marvel being over, DC being over, but they're talking about like the cinematic universes. Will anyone show
Right.
up to this movie? And you know, in the comics, you is always, it's not only like the source material, but it's like the beating heart of where these the you know, it's the home of these characters. It's where they can be renewed, where they can be refreshed, where they can tell their biggest stories with limitless budget. And so that there felt like it was like, you know what, let's show them what we can
Yeah.
do across the board. You could feel all these creators kind of being like, I've been doing creator owned for a while, but you know what, I'm kind of pissed off that like this is getting talked about this way. Like let us like show you why comics is where we can do stories with these characters that you can't do elsewhere, or but you probably will be in 10 years, be doing Ultimate Spider-Man as the movie or the, you know,
Yeah.
but for right now, let us just remind you why this is the medium where these characters live and breathe. And I think we all felt that. I can see it and feel it in John's stuff, with Jonathan Hickman stuff, and
Mm.
certainly in Dennis, I know, you know, in Ultimates and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and with Chris with Ultimate Wolverine too, and you know, over here too. It's just like we all felt that. It was like we love these characters because they're adaptable, because they exist to make us brave in the face of whatever we're afraid of at that given moment. And sometimes that means changing them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Switching gears just very briefly, I wanted to mention
Yeah.
you've been doing your class for what, 3 years now?
I think more. I think
I think you're
almost, yeah.
right.
I think I started it probably four, and we're going to do a big one actually next week. I'm going to do comic book fundamentals. I had this idea about, because I had this like theory that hit me the other day, because I've been reviewing all this stuff with Josh for DC, and I've been looking at, obviously I look at scripts from some students in the class and all that, and I feel like things have been really good, but there's also this like almost like a, you can kind of see it, you can kind of see it across the board, and I feel it pulling on my work sometimes too. But when you've been like absorbing stories through streaming for the last 4 or 5 years as the predominant method by which we consume stories,
Yeah.
you start to like take in those priorities. And it took me a minute to be like, they're really different priorities, right? Because streaming, it feels like streaming, like you already bought the whole season with your subscription. So whether you're purchasing, whether you have to wait a week, which they're going back to that model now more, or you binge the series, you don't have to like re-earn it by having them. You don't have to buy every episode as it comes out, and you don't have to wait as long as you do for comics, right? So it just feels like a lot of the writers, a lot of the readers, a lot of the fans, like we've come to accept sometimes some priorities of that storytelling model, decompression, for example, a lack of like hooks that make you have to come back, a reminder with each episode why these characters are awesome and special, because not because that storytelling method is worse or that format is worse, but because they don't need to do those things because you're binging it. So they don't have to remind you, you know, next week why you love this, or they don't have to like make you need to tune in
Yeah.
next episode, because you can just roll right into it. And
Right.
so they have good priorities for them. They do concept album stuff, they do immersive stuff. They're trying to show they can compete with old cable shows with huge budgets, and they can be an hour long. So there's just different priorities, but like this class will be about like the special strengths we have in this medium, to be like, these are 4 or 5 things that if you're thinking about doing monthly comics, you know, especially licensed stuff like superhero stuff or whatever, are good to remember, issue to issue. You don't have to do them all, but like things that if you're firing like, you know, on 4 out of the 5 cylinders, you're at least starting from a point where your priorities say to a reader, even subliminally, I'm working in this form. Like I'm
Right.
working in this method, you know? Like Jim Shooter used to be like, oh, you have the first pages of Splash where like you're hooking them and you're telling them everything that happened before. And I'm not saying it's that, I
That
don't
cut and
believe in
dry, but yeah.
that rigidity, but I believe in the spirit of that a lot about like, you know, that's a joy. It's a joy of being like, God, I have to wait a month. I got to go talk to my friends about this. So you've got to give them something every issue or every couple issues that makes them be like, what the fuck? I've got to go tell my friends about this. Did you
Yeah.
see that? You know, did you see what just happened? But when you think of it as a bingeable series, there's no such thing. Like the whole series is the thing you talk about. So you don't need one every episode at all. You can kind of have the ending be that and a slow build to that, like Midnight Mass, right? Which I
Oh,
love.
yes.
I love that show. One of the writers from Witches actually worked on that. But
No
the you
way.
know,
Oh,
that has
yet.
there's not it doesn't have the same priorities. It's this dreadful, wonderfully tense build to like what's going to happen to the very end when it explodes. But like that wouldn't work as well in comics because you'd be okay, maybe I'm not coming back next month because this didn't really hook me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like it's that. So yeah, I'm gonna do the class. I love the class. It keeps me young. It keeps me
Yep.
like hungry and reminded again of me being lucky to do it. And yeah, man. And we have not to shill too much, but I'm really hoping people will check out this upcoming issue, this arc, this Bane arc, because I really think Nick's art just is off the charts, but
Yeah.
this one really starts to cut to the heart of what we're trying to do with this series, and it goes bigger. It's nuts. Like it's really about him and his friends. Bane is going to surprise a lot of people, even though I mean that's why he's like redacted on the second cover already.
Yeah.
But I really love the body horror, and the fun of it is, you know, it's a reinvention of a bunch of stuff. Like you'll see characters from the Bat family you don't expect to see coming into the story. But also Arkham is totally reinvented.
Yeah.
It's really proud of what Nick was able to do with it. The goal was like, I love Arkham the way it is in the main comics. I love it in the video games, but the fun of it is that it's familiar, right? It's like you can change the way it looks, but it's generally like the holding pen for all the bad guys, and it's that feeling of like, oh, I'm in Arkham. I love this place. I know this haunted house.
Yeah.
Whereas I wanted to be like, what if it was totally unknowable and scary? What if you go in and you think you know it from the top, but then when you see what's really there, it's like it's totally alien and strange, and
Mm.
you're seeing things happen like that are nightmarish and hellish, and you don't know how to get out, and you don't know what the shape of it is even. It's like being in a hellscape where you're like, oh my god, I've fallen into a nightmare, nobody knows I'm here, and nobody how do I get out? You
Yeah.
know, that to me was like, let's make Arkham really scary. And
That's
that
cool.
Nick really knocked it out of the park with that one. So I can't wait. It's really gross. I mean, I'm really shocked that DC was letting us get away with some of this stuff, but they did put a mature they put a thing, they kind of did it without a lot of fanfare, but we're like now 13 plus, which I think is a better zone for us. I'm
Yeah.
happy that that's where we are. But
That's
yeah,
fair.
so yeah, but and you know, again, the more of course, like I'm overwhelmed and thrilled by the sales on Absolute Batman, but I can't say enough good things about all the other books. I hope you guys you'll really pick them up. I mean, they're doing great, way better
Yep.
than any of us had expected. But the more you buy these books and the more you show, whether it's here, Ultimate Universe, or again GI Joe, whatever, the more you're saying to the companies, we want creator forward comic books. Like we want this. Like so, there really is like you are kind of voting with your wallet for like, you know, do you want more books like this? Not necessarily a different universe, but you want more books that are creators coming to take a big swing and do something that you don't expect, even if it's in continuity in the main line. Because again, that's what we're gearing up to do in 26, like in 25 into 26. Like Matt has big plans, obviously, for Batman. We're launching a couple books, like Dan Slott on Superman Unlimited this month, but we're really going to take that energy and try and inject it into the line in the main line in 26. But the more you support these books, the more confidence DC has in fans showing up for that kind of risk taking. So it
Right.
makes a really big difference.
Totally fair, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. Really great to have you as always. Folks, if you haven't already, make sure to pre-order issue 9 of Absolute Batman. Issue 8 is out this week, and check that out as well. But also, of course, support your local comic book store, pre-order your books. And Scott, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Again, I'm next time I'll be in like my professional my office. It's like right outside this window, and I will prove it. Watch, it'll be like a fake background that looks like an office.
Exactly. It'll be the Batcave. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, Sal, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Like your fan base. Whenever I go to a convention, they show up and they're like, "Oh, I saw you on Comic Pop, Sal." Da, da, da. You've got such great fans, and they love you, and what you've been doing for comics for a long time means a lot to everybody. So I'm always thrilled to come on, and I appreciate the space to get to talk about this stuff.
My pleasure. It's all mine. Thank you so much, dude.